Alright, you can tell that I'm quite excited today because it's been a while since I've had content this fresh. This is the brand sparkling new Fujifilm X-A7 that has just been announced. This is a beautiful looking camera. Now, as expected from Fujifilm, it's retained their classic and retro design style. But if we're going to talk about looks, the X-A7 has certainly caught up quite a bit compared to its predecessor, the X-A5. Because on the front end, the faux leather wrap no longer cuts off right beside the lens mount and instead has the appearance of running straight through, which looks infinitely sexier in my opinion. But I think what really makes the X-A7 look like a more relevant camera in 2019 is that huge LCD panel on the back. It's a 3.5-inch display, which is pretty big for cameras, but it looks especially big on a small camera like this. Now, this screen is most definitely one of the main highlights of the X-A7. If you notice, it's a 16:9 screen, which is actually very uncommon for stills cameras. It is an articulating screen, but this one doesn't flip open upwards 180 degrees like you would expect from a Fujifilm mirrorless camera. This one actually opens on its side and you can flip it 270 degrees. So I guess you can say it's similar to the kind of screens you get on Canon cameras. It's also a really bright screen, so looking at it outdoors under sunlight, not really an issue. I also like how the backside of the flip screen has the same leather texture as the rest of the camera. I think it really does add a nice touch of finesse. And by the way, at the end of the video, there is going to be a giveaway. In collaboration with Fujifilm, we are actually going to be giving away an X-A7. I know, right? So be sure to stick around. Now you can tell that Fujifilm's gone totally minimalist with the interface layout. When you look at the back panel, you instantly realize just how clean it is because of how little buttons there are. The X-A7's done away with most of the buttons and instead given the real estate to the screen. Towards the right side of the screen, the conventional space-consuming navigation buttons have been completely walked down to just one little joystick, and meanwhile on the top panel, you literally have only 3 dials and 3 buttons, and that's including the power and shutter button. Having this little physical buttons, it's also no surprise that the UI is quite touch-oriented. Now, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, considering that this is an entry-level camera. And the touch UI itself is actually quite customizable in terms of the ability to assign functions to quick access software buttons. This whole graphic user interface thing is certainly something new and quite refreshing for Fujifilm cameras, like there's even this swipey split screen mode for previewing filters. I'll also point out some hardware details that you might find on the X-A7. It's got stereo built-in mics, and under the Fujifilm logo is the pop-up flash. There's an AF assist beam on the front, and on the grip side, there is a nice little door hiding the micro HDMI and also USB Type-C port. Now, the Type-C port is for data, but you can also charge the battery inside the camera through this Type-C port. And on the other end, there is a rubber flap covering the mic input. But there is one thing about this mic jack. It's a 2.5mm jack. And that's probably because it also doubles as the remote shutter release port, hence the 2.5mm connector. But not to worry, the camera does ship included with an adapter that will allow you to plug in your 3.5mm mics. You just have to remember to bring your adapter. Now, for an entry-level camera, the X-A7 actually has a pretty decent set of features, like it's got a very good continuous shooting speed of 6 frames per second. It's got a built-in intervalometer, and you can even do time lapses internally. And the software actually does an excellent job at face and eye detection, but the AF does seem to struggle to keep up. When it comes to autofocus performance, I would have to call this one mediocre. It's not excellent, but it's not horrible either. Now, being geared towards vloggers and online creators, the X-A7 does have a few more social media / selfie-friendly features, like a portrait enhancer, which is really just a beauty mode, and there's also a countdown timer for video. Now, not a countdown before it starts recording, it's a countdown while it is recording. For most filming applications, that probably doesn't make any sense at all. But when you come to think of it, it's actually kind of handy if you're shooting stuff for social media stories. Speaking of video features, back then the X-A5 could only do 4K videos in 15 frames per second, which basically meant that the camera was useless in 4K. Now, the X-A7 can shoot 4K videos up to 30 frames per second, so it's actually usable in 4K. Plus, you get to access all the frame rates: 23.98, 24, 25, and 29.97. But for video recording specifically, I do find that the internal sharpening for video is a bit much, and at least on the current firmware version that I'm using, there is no way to turn it down. It can also do 100 FPS slow-mo, in 720p though. When it comes to stills, the X-A7 can shoot them at up to 24.2 megapixels. And image quality, keep in mind that I'm shooting on a pre-production unit of the X-A7 and there is no way for me to check the raw files because no software supports it yet. So all my comments on the X-A7's image quality are based on straight out of camera JPEGs. The camera is capable of capturing some very decent quality photos, and I'm very impressed by its colors. Even under some pretty bad lighting conditions, the camera was able to render the colors quite naturally. Low light performance was certainly a pleasant surprise as well. Looking at the JPEGs with noise reduction left at standard, photos taken at rather high ISO settings were still quite clean. But one thing I'm not too fond of on this camera is, unfortunately, the build. When you pick up the camera and hold it in your hand, you can't help but notice how plasticky the build is. Now, I described it using the word plasticky instead of cheap because I actually think it's not poorly built. All the moving parts move and feel right, and they don't rattle around. My issue is with the material. There is a lot of hard plastic, and it's not the most comfortable material to hold, and it just doesn't feel very premium. Then again, this is an entry-level camera, just setting some expectations for you guys. But there is a silver lining though. All that plastic makes the X-A7 marvelously light. The body itself weighs only about 320 grams with a battery in, and bringing it around with me for the past couple of weeks, it did make my EOS R feel like a brick in comparison. It totally made bringing a camera around feel like less of a chore. It's a light small camera with a nice big flip screen, so if you're looking for a camera to vlog with, or if you're a content creator on the go, definitely add this to your list of considerations. Now, for those of you who made it all the way this far into the video, about that giveaway, it really is happening thanks to the amazing people over at Fujifilm who are making this possible. I will be giving away one Fujifilm X-A7 with the 15-45 kit lens to one lucky winner. There is a link in the description which will bring you to a sign up page for the giveaway, but the gist of it is, to be eligible for the giveaway, you have to be subscribed to the channel and share this video on Facebook. I'll be announcing the winner in 2 weeks' time on the 26th of September on the Z Productions Instagram account, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. And one more thing, for those of you watching in Malaysia, here's a special little invitation. The Malaysian launch of the X-A7 is happening in 2 days on the 14th of September at 3 PM at Lens Library. It's located inside CO3 Social Office, and that's in Puchong. I'm going to be there, so if you're going for the launch, come over and say hi. I'll leave a link below as well to sign up for the launch. So that is it for today. If you enjoyed the video, do consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon for more videos just like this, and I'll see you in the next video. But until then, here's another video of mine YouTube thinks you should watch, or if you don't like a computer telling you what to watch, here's one of my latest videos.